He's founding this company called SpAItial. They had a seed round of funding and they raised 13 million.
In the scale of what's going on in AI these days, it's like literally at the tiniest drop. It's like we're doing AI homeopathy in Europe. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening.
Welcome to the AI Argument.
Welcome to the AI Argument with me, Justin Connery, joined as ever by Frank Prendergast. Frank, it's been a great week. How are you feeling about things?
I'm feeling pretty good, actually. I found some pretty kind of optimistic stories to chat with you about this week, I feel like, as well as the usual doom and gloom stuff, of course.
Brilliant. Well, look, I mean, I think it's a great week. Big news this week. Hallucinations have been solved. I know this is something that you've been worried about for a long time. And don't take it from me, right? Because obviously I think it's just an engineering problem. Ethan Mollock has come out, the professor from Wharton University, to say that hallucinations have been solved. And in fact, if there is hallucinations in any of your AI generated content, it just shows that you're not using the right model in the right way. You haven't clicked the deep research button. Just click deep research. Hallucinations solved. I'm delighted. You must be delighted too.
Ethan Mollock said no such thing. He would be be shocked and appalled to have his opinions put that way. Yes, he did say that there's no excuse for like fake citations now in AI because we have deep research, etc. But to be clear, he did not say hallucinations have been solved. I mean, you don't even believe hallucinations have been solved.
Maybe I'm hallucinating. When I read when I read Ethan Mollock said hallucinations have been solved, he may not have said it in that exact way, but he said that, just showed
he may not have used the words hallucinations have been solved.
He may not, but the words meant it.
Well, no, I would disagree. True to form on this show, I would disagree. Hallucinations continue and will always continue, but we do have better ways now of fact checking, not only for the user to fact check, but we have ways for the models to fact check themselves, which is what deep research essentially does. Is it goes out on the internet and actually it finds resources to bring back to you, and it has better systems of doing that hallucinate links a lot less than the earlier models. But hallucinations as a core, I won't say function, but feature of these models is still a thing that happens.
Yeah, we all hallucinate.
So I just think, yes, but I think we have to be very careful about making statements like hallucinations have been solved, because then people will think that, when they're not using deep research, etc., that they might be able to get away with not fact checking the output, which I think we all still have to fact check stuff coming from LLMs. And any links that you get even from deep research, like follow them, make sure that they actually exist, because, I wouldn't give it 100% accuracy.
No, but that's a bit like saying, driving hasn't been solved. I mean, follow the signposts, use your steering wheel, and, things will be okay, but don't let the car drive itself. This is the same. This is an engineering problem. As long as you implement the technology properly, you won't get hallucinations. Give it ground truth, give it an out, give it a way to say, I don't know. And there'll be less hallucinate. Remember, the bar here is not 100%. The bar here is better than the average human. So I would say that if you use the technology correct, AIs will hallucinate better than the average human. And I also think, I've said it before, hallucinations are a necessary feature. Right? You want the model to be creative in certain scenarios, and that's basically hallucinating a new solution. It's a positive feature.
Yeah. So tangentially related to this,
yes.
Had you come across a company called Partsol? Because I have to admit, I had not come across them before, but they are used. They're used in. Their market is in kind of regulated industries and industries where things like hallucinations matter a lot.
Yep.
And they say that they have developed these models that do not hallucinate because, again, as you are saying, they've come at it as an engineering problem and they have engineered a solution that the implementations that they're using it for, the information is verifiable. And so they have these systems that can verify everything before presenting it to the user.
Yep.
That's all really interesting. But what caught my eye was that the CEO and founder, whose name is Daryl Williams, he had a letter in the Irish Times. And I just thought it was very, very interesting because they've actually moved their headquarters to Dublin. And he said, like, he acknowledged the kind of turbulence, the turbulence across the Atlantic between Europe and the States right now.
Yep.
But he said that he thought it was a really good move for them because they actually want the regulatory certainty that the EU brings when they are developing AI systems of this importance. And I just thought that was really interesting. And
do you think, I mean, if you build some software, okay, so let me just preface this by saying that I don't think all regulation is bad. There are some regulations that you need, right? But do you think if you're building a piece of software that helps you enforce regulations, being in a market where there's very few regulations isn't going to lead to a very big market? And then if you move your headquarters to a market where there's lots of regulations, well, obviously that's a good place to go from a business point of view because your product has lots of use cases in a market where there's regulations. So yeah, it makes loads of sense for a company like that to move to Europe.
That's a little bit of an oversimplification, though, because the US might be less regulatory than the EU, but if you're dealing with like industries like pharma, etc., there's loads of regulations. And my understanding is that Partsol works with industries like pharma and other regulated industries that would be regulated even in the US.
Yeah. Their product looks
so
really interesting, by the way. I had a look through their product and it does look like a good product and it looks like a necessary product. And I do think there's opportunities for specialists. I'd be interested to know a bit more about how they implement their product. Is it really a model or is it a system that they've implemented on top of the model? But either way, I actually think it's a very good idea. And I think that I hope that they're successful. I think they will be successful because, as you say, there are industries. I mean, most big industries have regulations and using AI to implement those regulations is a really good use of the tech. And you found another interesting story this week where that wasn't happening. An Bord Pleanála.
Sorry. Yes. So that the An Bord Pleanála. So for anyone who isn't Irish, they are the planning board. They look after, can you build your house on that land? Can you expand your steel plant in this case? And they actually have removed one of their planners from the decision board for this plant because they discovered that he or she, actually, I don't know who it was. He or she was using ChatGPT to help write the report. And I just thought this was fascinating. And as soon as they found out, not only did they remove him from the decision-making process, they locked down their systems now so that you can't access ChatGPT and you can't access other AI tools. And this is the complete wrong direction to be moving, in my opinion. Like, I do not think that ChatGPT should be making our Bord Pleanála decisions for us. But, that wasn't the case here. And it was going, it's not like he was making the decision on his own anyway, because he was removed from a panel of people, as far as I understand. So, yes, you have to use AI correctly, kind of as you said earlier. You have to use it the right way. But the tools should be available to people and the training should be available to people to use those tools in the right way. Using it as it was reported that it was being used in this case, which was for formatting and, helping flesh out the thoughts, like that is the perfect use for ChatGPT here to speed up the writing of reports by an expert.
And I'd even go further, right? So if you've got a regulated industry like An Bord Pleanála, planning and stuff like that, right? All the regulations are written down. They're understandable by AI. I mean, you should not just can you use it for formatting and planning, but I mean, you can use it to fact check yourself. So, put in the, you can come to your own decision. You can put all the regulations and the particular application itself into the system, and then get it to, they do this for doctor systems and stuff like that. What are the 5 concerns you'd have about this planning application? And just check that you've also had, the similar concerns addressed. And I'd even go further than that again, especially in Ireland. And I think in a lot of countries, there's a housing issue, right? Houses are expensive, right? It's difficult to build property. And one of the reasons for that is that it's difficult to get planning permission. There should be a web service where you can just submit your plans and have it, sort of double check your plans and come back and say, yes, this is likely to pass, or this is likely not to pass. And here's the things that you would need to address. And it's not a decision. It'll still go to the planning board, but it means that you can have a conversation with the planning board without ever going to the planning board. And it'll speed the whole process up. And
address the obvious issues.
Now, I'll give you the counterpoint, Frank. The other side of that argument is every country has their NIMBYs, people that just don't want stuff built, right? So if I want to object to something, then I could just go throwing loads of objections at this sort of planning board bot to see which ones are going to land and which ones aren't. And so it makes both sides perhaps a bit more effective, and maybe nobody wins. I don't know. But regulated things like this, you should be able to use the AI to pre-planning to help you, get your plans in order, and then the planners should be allowed to use it. It's ridiculous that they shut it down in this way.
Yeah, it really is. Probably a great opportunity for somebody there to approach Bord Pleanála and discuss the proper implementation of AI and what it could do for them, and the training that they could offer.
Go Partech. As I said, I actually do think it's a genuinely great use case, and I think that company, I hope they're successful, because I think they've got a good product there.
So another on the whole Europe, on the whole EU and regulations and all that. So one of the things that you've said is that we won't get the same level of innovation, we won't get the same level of companies, etc. And one of my kind of pushbacks to you on that is that we've never had that kind of level of innovation here anyway, as in we don't have a Facebook, we don't have, etc. But I did see something interesting, which was a company called SpAItial. And this is a company that is being founded by a co-founder of Synthesia. So Synthesia is another great European AI company. It's one of the most popular AI avatar companies, very, very widely used by a lot of people. But the co-founder, whose name is Matthias Niesner, if I'm saying that correctly, I believe he is a German fellow. So he's founding this company called SpAItial. Now the name, right, SpAItial, it's SpAItial.
I see what he did there.
They are going to run into so much trouble with that name. Every phone call they have. Yes, it's Matthias here from SpAItial. SpAIT. No.
SpAItial. You'd say it with an accent, and it'll come out SpAItial.
But what caught my eye was that they did they had a seed round of funding, and they raised 13 million. Now, I'm not a funding person. When I saw this, it said it was a lot of money, and I was like, okay. So I went off and I worked with O3 to find out, like, what did this really mean, and was it really a lot of money, and what was the story here? And O3 did a load of research and came back and said that in Europe, seed funding would usually be about 1.5 to 2 million in order to go away and verify an idea. It's really, really early stage funding. So you're basically just going away and fleshing out an idea before you start developing it. So 13 million would be much more usually associated with something like, what do they call it? Series A funding, where you've established now, you've verified everything, you've got something in place, and now you need to expand. So this is huge funding in European terms for seed funding. And their product is, their company is to be able to put in a text prompt and generate an entire 3D world from that text prompt. So very, very ambitious, very cool sounding, and somebody with serious chops behind the whole company.
And I'll say to you as well, right? I mean, it's great, right? It's great to see it. And again, of course, we wish them all the success in the world. The problem for me is the number of companies that get funded and the ambition of the companies that get funded. And it's not for lack of brains in Europe. If you look at any of the Anthropic presentations or any of the OpenAI presentations, a third of those people are clearly, European, born and educated, right? They're Germans and they're French and Eastern Europeans as well. They seem to be particularly good at it. But I would say, facetiously, I would say that the coffee machines in OpenAI cost more than 13 million quid. It's in the scale of what's going on in AI these days. It's like literally at the tiniest drop. It's like we're doing AI homeopathy in Europe. It's just, it's kind of like AI light. We're doing a little bit, and at every scale, right? At every point, we're just not doing enough. So we don't have the power infrastructure. We don't have the financial infrastructure. We don't have, we have the brains, we have the people, but we just don't have all the other bits to make this like really. And there are there are big tech. We were great at Nokia. Ruled the mobile phone world back in the early noughties. There's, Nordics in particular seem quite good at setting up technology companies. But when it comes to AI, we just don't. I mean, why isn't there the United? What is it? Was it Qatar? There last week signed a deal with OpenAI to build an enormous data center, and they were going to build nuclear power stations. How many nuclear power stations are we planning to build in Europe in the next 5 years? I bet at least my firstborn that it's zero. And so it's great, right? I wish them all the success, and I'm sure they'll do great, but it's not enough.
Yeah, well, I think I am optimistic about the positive signs that we're seeing in terms of what certain people are saying now. I mean, even do you remember you had a very, very brief bromance with JD Vance there a couple of episodes ago?
I'm still hurting.
Well, my current bromance is with Brad Smith from Microsoft, who I have never heard of before in my entire life. But when I was at the AI Summit in Dublin, the Microsoft guys brought him up because they brought up this talk that he gave in Brussels about Europe and about Microsoft's dedication to Europe and what they were going to do to safeguard European data, etc. And I went away and I watched that talk, and in the Q&A after that talk, he made a similar point to the Partsol guys, to the Partsol founder. And he was just saying that regulation can foster innovation because you can spend a huge amount of time in the courts figuring out what the law is, after the fact, or you can do the regulatory stuff, figure it out, and then move forward quickly. So he is saying kind of similar things, and is quite positive.
I would take a slightly different. I take a slightly different tack on that, right? Because I don't think that regulation is going to foster innovation, right? I just don't. But you know what you could do if you wanted to foster innovation is you could create standardization instead of innovation. So instead of telling people what they can and can't do, tell them what the framework is in which they should do things. And I think that like the MCP protocol that's going on has been a complete eye-opener for me, right? It's such a simple thing, right? A list of just standards as to how you should implement a system, right, using AI. And yet it's such an obviously good idea. And it's kind of like when you look at it, it's like, why didn't we do this before? Like, I mean, that's clearly right now, yes, okay, now we can plug things in, and that clearly fosters innovation. And if you think about the Brits, 100 years ago, they created, the British Standards Institute, for weights and measures during the Industrial Revolution, so that, a kilogram was a kilogram and a meter was a meter and whatever. And they had weights and measures, and did you ever go to Cambridge? I think it is. They have like a ball, which is exactly 1 kilogram. And rather than putting in regulation, why doesn't the European Union start putting in standardization? And then the European companies can use those standards to build products on top of them, which will be widely adopted because this is a brand new area and we need standards.
Yeah, I mean, I would argue that is more or less what the goal of the regulations are. But look, it's no surprise. It's no surprise that we disagree over over regulations. And I'm glad, because we had a little period there of the AI argument where we didn't seem to be arguing over much there for a while. So I'm glad we're back on track and we're arguing about everything. But there is something that we both agree on, I think, and that has flared up in the media now, because Dario Amodei came out and said there was going to be a lot of job losses. And I think Geoffrey Hinton, Geoffrey Hinton has been saying it for a long time, but I think he made waves saying it again recently. It seems to be now hitting the mainstream media consciousness that there are going to be major job losses from AI. And it's funny because, like, when we were coming on the show, we had put our links into our shared spreadsheet to look at what we were going to talk about. And you were kind of surprised. You were saying, "Oh, did the Dario Amodei thing not cross your radar at all?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, it did. It was popping up in my feeds everywhere." But I was just kind of looking at them, going, "Yeah, like, welcome to the races, guys. Like, of course this was going to cause job losses. Of course, AI replacing human workers is a goal of a lot of organizations. And we've been talking about this on the AI argument since we started it, and that's over a year now. And it seems that it's only now finally getting into the kind of mainstream consciousness that, like, oh, hang on, this might mean serious job loss.
It's funny because, well, it's not funny at all, right? But my thing, right, is that if you sit down on a Saturday afternoon with a cup of tea and you think really deeply for a couple of hours about, here's a technology that is generally applicable, right? That's the first thing. It applies to almost every area of endeavor that you can think of. And it will, for as long as we can project, get 90% cheaper and twice as capable every 12 months. And really, become one with that thought. And then start to figure out step by step, well, what does that actually mean? And it's obvious what it means, right? And it's sort of the brunt of some of our arguments, because it's kind of like, we should be building power stations. We're going to lead a lot of power stations. The cost of intelligence is eventually will drop to the cost of energy, right? It's a very simple calculation. And the other result of that is that most work that we think of today as work, isn't going to be done by people, most likely. Now, I think that the for those that are, that aren't familiar with those concepts, they probably underestimate the amount of change that's about to come. And I think that the people that are very close to the technology, like Dario, probably underestimate the amount of inertia that there is in big companies and the scale of change. And actually, I was looking there, if you think of the adoption of personal computers in companies, right? It isn't like, the personal computer was invented in 1985 and, in 1987, half of all offices had personal computers. And by 1990, that was it. There was a computer everywhere. It took decades. And big companies take time to change and to adapt. And also, we're in this phase of learning, right? There's this enormous technology overhang. We still don't know how best to apply the technology. So there's loads of reasons to think that it might take, Dario Amodei said it's going to happen in the next 1 to 5 years. I think it's probably closer to 5 to 10 years. So it's inevitable what will happen eventually. It's just the timelines in which it will happen aren't inevitable. And I think, 5 to 10 years does give us lots of time as a society to figure out how to deal with that. I mean, there's probably fairly simple ways to do it. Like, Tesla, if he had patented electricity and charged 1 cent for every kilowatt hour that had been patented, he would have died, a multi-billionaire. And he didn't. He died poor. But, if you use that analogy that ultimately at the end, the cost of intelligence will boil down to the cost of electricity. An easy solution, or not an easy solution, there's no easy solutions, but one possible solution is you just put a tax on electricity and then you use that tax to redistribute wealth throughout the society. Maybe that's a way to get around this. The issue, I think, is that we have people like Dario Amodei and lots of people. It was in the Financial Times this week. It was in The Economist this week, right? It's, as you say, it's gone mainstream. And there's lots of people going, oh my God, this terrible thing is about to happen. And there's nobody yet coming up saying, look, here's a possible solution. Here's a possible solution. And there's going to be 100 possible solutions. And different countries will try different things, and we'll figure out what way it is that works best. But we need to start talking about the solutions but we need to get over. Is there 7 stages of fear? I don't know. There's bits where everybody goes, "Oh my God," and then everybody eventually calms down and goes, "Right, we need to sort this out. This is the difficult teenage years. It will get sorted out, and it will lead to a better future. But we do need to, we need to figure out, one, we're going to need lots of infrastructure. The world is going to change in these ways. We need to be building lots of nuclear power stations and, creating standards and all that good stuff. And then we need to figure out how to keep everybody solvent and happy and fulfilled and all those good things."
Yeah. A lot of work to do, and it's not being done right now, essentially.
Yes.
This is a kind of a fun story, but there's actually quite a bit in it as well. So I was reading Zain Khan's email newsletter the other day, and he linked to this absolutely fascinating story about 4 AI agents raising $2,000 for charity.
Yes.
And the way this was done was so cool, right? They got 4 models. Now the models actually changed over time. So this particular experiment, it's still the overall experiment is still running, but the raising money for charity thing ran for 30 days. And they give 4 models access to a computer, and the 4 AI models have to work together then to raise money for charity, including right from the beginning, like deciding what charities they were going to raise money for, everything. And they stream this little community of AIs live, so anyone can log in and watch them work. They ran it for 30 days. It doesn't run like 24 hours a day. It's like I assume, because it needs human supervision to make sure that things don't go completely AWOL. So they run it for like two hours a day. These models work on their project. So they raised money for, who did they raise money for? I can't remember. They picked 2 charities anyway. Yep. And they came up with a campaign. They set up accounts to accept money. So I think they use like Just Giving.
Yep.
So it's kind of like a GoFundMe type thing. Mm-hmm. And then they created social media accounts, and they posted on social media, and they managed to raise $2,000 from people on social media who wanted to support this AI community's fundraising efforts. Yeah. It was for they raised 1,481 for Helen Keller International, and they raised $503 for the Malaria Consortium. And they broke down what all the models were good for and what they learned, which was I just find this stuff. Yeah, totally fascinating. So Claude 3.7 was basically, they said, unambiguously their top performer. So it was the one that came up with setting up the Just Giving campaign. It was the one that created a Twitter account. It actively tweeted consistently. It even hosted an Ask Me Anything. It sent out a press release. It just did stuff. It just went off and it did stuff, which was one of the overall problems that they found with this community of models. Like, they basically said they were only kind of like moderately good at working together to do stuff. And a lot of the time, I mean, to be honest, it sounded a bit like a human government agency. There was a lot of like writing reports and generating ideas and writing strategy documents in Google, but the people who organized it had to kind of step in sometimes and be like, lads, you should probably actually do something to raise money. You should probably actually get out there and take action. So apparently Claude 3.5 Sonnet, it tried to do a lot of the things as 3.7, but it just wasn't as capable, so it wasn't able to do them. Gemini 2.5 Pro, it did some cool things apparently. Like, it was able to figure out a workaround about document sharing that every other model had struggled with. This one, I love this. GPT-4o, which is a model that I love. Like, GPT-4o is kind of like my default model. I absolutely love it, use it for everything. What did GPT-4o do, Justin?
I don't know, Frank.
It went to sleep. It went to sleep.
Really?
Yeah. Well, what they said in their report was, you know how every team effort needs a slacker? That was 4o. It would pause itself on successive days for reasons that they could not figure out. And then they eventually replaced it with GPT 4.1.
Wow.
4.1 then did a better job of staying awake, but they said it was so actively unhelpful to other agents that they ended up prompting it to please go to sleep.
Go to sleep. Isn't it so interesting? I would have been, that's a great experiment, right? I think the results, I'll be honest with you, I would have thought they might do better. Like $2,000 is good, but it's not like loads of money.
Yeah.
I'd really be interested to do, they should do more experiments like this, and they should put some rogue agents in there. So put some agents that are trying to do something bad and see when you have multiple agents and you got one rogue agent, what happens? Do they turn on the rogue agent? Um, and then I know that for the longest time you've been concerned with deep fakes and can you trust stuff that's on the internet and can you not? I mean,
Yeah.
when are we going to see somebody do a GoFundMe that's just totally fabricated? It's just AI agents going in there and just trying to get money for no good reason at all. I mean, the technology exists.
I'm sure they're out there. A bit like when we were talking about the Reddit experiment and the people interacting with bots unknowingly on Reddit. I'm sure there are plenty of people who have given money to completely AI fabricated GoFundMes. Would you not think?
Yeah, maybe. Could we get a whole load of bots to maybe go out and find some advertisers for us and sort of raise some cash? Just have a team of 4 AIs just go out there and get us some market share.
We should set up our own AI community of bots for sure. Definitely.
We could have a Justin bot and a Frank bot, and they'd argue with each other on how best to go out and raise money. and then the other one would go to sleep. That'd be the Justin bot.
You mentioned the deepfakes there, so we should give an honorable mention at the last minute of the show to the kangaroo trying to board an airplane.
Yes, this is more than an honorable mention, Frank. Right? So this week there was people going crazy on the internet because there was a video released of a woman who wanted to bring a kangaroo as her, what do they call them, comfort pets or whatever it is, onto the plane. Right? They have a name for these things. I don't know. And the kangaroo was clearly standing there quietly as the woman argued with the flight attendant, holding the tickets in her hand, right? The kangaroo was holding the tickets in the hand, right? So whatever, right? It was a deep fake. The point is this, Frank. We as a society have moved on. This is why I'm full of optimism, right? People like you were worried at the start of this show, maybe just over a year ago, we're like, oh my God, there's going to be deep fakes all over the internet. You won't be able to trust anything. The sky is going to fall down. We're here now. You can't trust anything. The sky hasn't fallen down. We've just adapted as a society. The world is going to be good.
Justin, was it you told me about dead internet theory? I'm not sure.
I talked about it because I was looking for monkey suits. I know it was all just AI generated. Yeah.
Yeah. So you introduced me to this concept of the dead internet theory, which I went away and I looked up then. And basically, for anyone who hasn't heard about it, it was actually a conspiracy theory, I think in the 90s. Was it in the 90s? Where they said that the internet there was nobody actually on the internet anymore. It was all just like government bots and, mind control bots just making us think what the government want us to think. But now with AI, there are a lot of people who are concerned that what was a conspiracy theory in the 90s could easily become reality, where, not necessarily government controlled, but that the internet could quickly become not inhabited by humans, but just inhabited by all these bots. And we don't know who's who, we don't know what's what. And I think that's still a valid concern. And I think, when you say that we're here now and the world hasn't fallen in or anything, I do think that the internet could become a massively less valuable tool than it has been over the last couple of decades. Does that mean that we just, we move to a new system, we move to a new kind of way of communications? Or does it just mean that we lose a very, very valuable tool because of the amount of AI noise that is generated on it?
Maybe, Frank, if the Europeans stopped regulating and put in some, standardization, we could create a human layer on top of the internet where you can verify that, the people writing this post are human or not. That would be a great thing the European Union could do. And maybe they should get to work on it. And do you know who already has such a system?
Who?
OpenAI. What's his name? Orb. The Orb thing. It scans your eyeball. And the idea is then that when you post stuff on the internet, you can verify that you're human. But I don't know that that's a great solution. What I'm saying, there should be, you could have some sort of framework or whatever, where I do think there's going to have to be like the internet and then the human internet, where you can be guaranteed that everything on it is created by a human in the future. But we adapt, we figure it out. The sky doesn't fall down. Like, there's not terrible things happening. When Macron got slapped across the face today, people didn't say, oh my God, that was during the week. People didn't say, oh my God, is that real or is it deep fake or whatever, right? We figure out as a society how to know what's real and what isn't. And we don't end up with that. Nothing. You were worried, I think it would say, oh, they've post some videos about politicians doing things that aren't true at all and that could swing elections. It's not happening. Everything's fine.
Everything's fine.
This is fine.
I can see the flames behind you as you say that. Fantastic. Justin, I will chat to you next week and we will argue more about the role of regulation and how it can save us all and how it can put out those flames that I can see lighting behind you. I'll chat to you soon.
Right. Pleasure as always. Talk to you soon.